My wife posted on a forum asking, "How can I get my share of my husband's business if we divorce?" I replied, "You must have forgotten about that prenup." Can you imagine finding out your wife, the woman you thought loved you, was secretly plotting your financial ruin online, meticulously researching how to steal your millions? What if I told her, "You don't remember that prenup," and her response was actual divorce papers on our kitchen counter just hours later? I stood outside our apartment door, my heart hammering against my ribs. Not from the 3 flights of stairs, but from the sheer, monumental weight of the news I was carrying. 5.2 million. That was the final buyout number. After 3 grueling years of coding in the dark, surviving on instant ramen, and watching my hairline recede from stress, the acquisition was official. The money wasn't in the account yet. That would take a few weeks, but the ink was dry. I wasn't the broke, struggling developer anymore. I was a solvent, successful man. I was finally the husband Elena wanted me to be. I turned the key, a wide grin splitting my face. I was ready for the scream of joy. I was ready for her to hug me, to tell me she was proud of my resilience. I was ready to finally feel like a partner, not a burden. I pushed the door open. "Elena, you home?" She was in the kitchen, aggressively scrubbing a pan. The noise was scraping and harsh. She didn't turn around. "You forgot the trash, Mark," she said. Her voice wasn't angry. It was just tired, resigned. The kind of tone you use with a dog that keeps peeing on the rug. "It's garbage day tomorrow. Now the hallway is going to smell like rot for a week because you were too busy zoning in on your little project." "I'm sorry," I started, stepping further inside, hiding the bottle of celebratory champagne behind my back. "You're always just something," she snapped, finally spinning around. Her eyes were dull, filled with a familiar mixture of pity and annoyance. "My dad called today. He asked if you'd found a real job yet. Do you know how humiliating it is to tell him you're still playing pretend with that app?" Her voice dropped, venomous. "He was right, Mark. He told me 3 years ago that ambition without execution is just delusion. I'm tired of waiting for you to grow up." The words hit me like buckshot. I stood there, the cold bottle pressing against my lower back. This was our dynamic for the last 18 months. I was the dreamer, the leech, the anchor dragging her down. She was the martyr who worked as a paralegal to keep the lights on. "Elena," I said quietly, "I didn't take the trash out because I was at the lawyer's office." She rolled her eyes, turning back to the sink. "Great. What did you get sued for? Did you infringe on someone's copyright? Do we need to borrow money from my parents again? Because I swear to God, Mark, if we sold..." I interrupted. She froze. The scrubbing stopped. "What?" "The app. We sold the IP and the user base this morning." I pulled the bottle out from behind my back and set it on the island. It made a heavy thud. 5.2 million. It hits the account in 14 days. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. I watched her back. I watched her shoulders tense, then slowly relax. When she turned around, the woman who had just called me delusional was gone. Her face had transformed. The tightness around her mouth vanished, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated awe. Her eyes, which had been dull seconds ago, were suddenly wet and sparkling. "Baby," she whispered. The word made my stomach turn. She hadn't called me that in 2 years. 5 million, she asked, her voice trembling. 5.2, actually. I corrected, my voice flat. She screamed. It was the scream I had anticipated, but now it sounded piercing and shrill. She rushed across the kitchen and threw her arms around my neck, burying her face in my shoulder. I could feel her tears soaking my shirt. "I knew it," she sobbed, clutching me tight. "I knew you could do it. I told everyone, Mark, I told them you were a genius. Oh my God. We made it. We actually made it." I stood there, my arms hanging limp at my sides. "I told everyone you were a genius." That was a lie. Last week at her sister's birthday, I heard her telling her cousin that she felt like she had adopted a teenager and was considering an ultimatum. "I love you so much," she said, pulling back to kiss me. Her lips were warm, eager. "We're going to have such a beautiful life. We need to celebrate. We need to call my mom. We need to look at that house on Pine Street." I kissed her back, but I felt nothing. No spark, no relief, just a cold, hard knot of clarity forming in my chest. She didn't love me. She loved the safety. She loved the validation. 5 minutes ago, I was a failure who forgot the trash. Now I was a genius who deserved her affection. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. We made it. It felt like kissing a corpse. 2 weeks passed. The money landed. If I thought the initial switch was jarring, the aftermath was a masterclass in hypocrisy. Elena quit her job 3 days after the wire transfer cleared.
She didn't ask me.
She just came home at noon on a Tuesday and announced she was retiring to manage our assets. She started planning vacations to the Maldives and Aspen. She started talking about our portfolio. She posted a photo of us on Instagram, the first one in over a year, with the caption, "Patiently built an empire with my best friend." I liked the post. I didn't say a word. I just watched her perform. I couldn't sleep, though. The stress of the startup grind had been replaced by a different kind of anxiety. The feeling that I was sleeping next to a stranger who was slowly unzipping my wallet. It was 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Elena was fast asleep, dreaming of the Range Rover she wanted me to buy her on the weekend. I was in the living room, pacing. It was a nervous tic I developed during the coding sprints. 3 steps to the window. 3 steps back. I sat down on the sofa and opened Reddit on my phone. I usually browsed r/tech or r/startups. But tonight, feeling the heavy weight of my sham marriage, I found myself doom-scrolling r/marriage. I wanted to see if other people felt this sudden disconnect after a major life event. I refreshed the new tab. A post caught my eye immediately. It had 0 upvotes and had been posted 6 minutes ago. Title: Trapped with a man-child who got lucky. How to bypass a prenup. My breath hitched. I clicked it. Throwaway account, obviously, the post began. I, 27F, am in a nightmare situation that everyone else thinks is a dream. I've been married to a total loser, 29M, for 3 years. I'm talking zero ambition, depression, naps, forgets basic chores, plays on his computer all day pretending to work. I carried us. I paid the rent. I dealt with the embarrassment when my family asked what he did. I stopped reading for a second. My chest felt tight. Depression naps. That's what she called it. When I worked 20-hour shifts and collapsed from exhaustion for a day, I kept reading. I was actually planning to leave him next month. There's a VP at my firm, let's call him Jay, who I've been getting close with. Jay is everything my husband isn't. Assertive, successful, masculine. We haven't slept together yet, but the emotional connection is there. And Jay told me to leave the dead weight. The room suddenly felt very cold. The VP. She had mentioned her boss, Jason, a few times. Said he was a mentor. But here's the kicker. The idiot's little computer project actually worked. He sold his company 2 weeks ago for $5.2 million. Exact. I froze. The world narrowed down to the glowing screen in my hand. 5.2? Not 5 million. Not a few million. 5.2. Now he's walking around like he's Elon Musk and I have to play the doting wife. I can't leave now, right? I put in the time. I suffered through the broke years. I deserve half of that payout for emotional damages alone. The problem is the prenup. I laughed a short, dry bark of a laugh that echoed in the silent apartment. 3 years ago when we got married, I forced him to sign a prenup. I was making $60,000 and he was making $0. I didn't want to be liable for his startup debt if he crashed and burned. I wanted to protect my credit score. I didn't read the fine print about future assets because, honestly, I thought 100% of nothing would always be nothing. Now I'm realizing that prenup completely walls off anything he created or sold that wasn't joint labor. Since I didn't code the app, I get nothing. Is there any way to avoid this? Can I claim I was under duress or that he had hidden assets? I need a strategy before I file. I can't stay with this boring, pacing at 3 a.m. weirdo for the rest of my life, just for the lifestyle. I want the cash and I want out. Pacing at 3 a.m. weirdo. I looked down at my feet. I had stopped pacing to read this. It was not just a suspicion anymore. It was a confession. A signed, time-stamped confession detailing her infidelity, her contempt, and her greed.
She didn't want me.
She wanted to rob me and run to Jay. I looked toward the bedroom door. She was sleeping soundly, probably thinking she was the smartest woman in the world.
She thought she had trapped me.
She had no idea she had just handed me the key to my freedom. I didn't scream. I didn't go into the bedroom and shake her awake. I felt a strange, icy calm wash over me. The realist in me took the wheel. I took a screenshot of the post. Then I screenshotted the comment section where she argued with people calling her a gold digger. Then I went to her profile and archived the entire thread using the Wayback Machine, just in case she deleted it. Okay, Elena, I whispered to the empty room. You want a strategy? I'll give you a strategy. I opened my banking app and moved half the liquidity, my half, legally protected by the document she loved so much, into a separate holding account she couldn't access. Then I opened a new tab and typed in a reply to her post. My fingers flew across the keyboard. You don't. That prenup you didn't read protects the loser.
Pause.
Divorce papers on the kitchen counter. I hit post. Then I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and grabbed a pen. I didn't have divorce papers yet, but a handwritten note declaring intent and separation of residence would hold up enough for tonight. The game was over. I didn't pack much. It's surprising how little you actually need when you realize the life you built was a hologram. I took my laptop, my hard drives, my passport, and a week's worth of clothes. I left the expensive watch she had bought me with my own credit card last week. I left the wedding ring on the nightstand. It felt lighter without it. I moved quietly, the soft hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the apartment. Elena was still asleep, oblivious. She was probably dreaming of the VP or calculating how much alimony she could squeeze out of a 5-year marriage. I walked to the kitchen island. I didn't have official divorce papers. It was 3:30 a.m., but I grabbed a legal pad and a Sharpie. I saw the post. I know about Jason. I know about the plan to avoid the prenup. You were right about one thing. The prenup is ironclad. It protects everything I made. You get what you came in with. I'm gone. Do not contact me. I left the note next to the bottle of champagne. The bottle was warm now, flat, just like us. I called an Uber Black. Then, while I waited in the hallway, I couldn't stand to be in that air a second longer. I unlocked my phone for the final strike. I created a new group chat. Participants: Elena's mom, Elena's dad, my mom, my dad. I didn't hesitate. I attached the 3 screenshots. The main post where she called me a useless loser and admitted to the emotional affair. The comment where she admitted the prenup was her idea to avoid my debt. The comment where she asked if she could lie about duress to get the money. I typed a single message below the images. Elena isn't who you think she is. She was planning to leave me for her boss until the money hit my account. She signed a prenup to protect herself from my potential failure. And now she's upset that it protects me from her greed. I'm done. She's your responsibility again. I hit send. The little blue bar zipped across the screen. Delivered. I walked out of the building just as the Uber pulled up. I didn't look up at our window. I told the driver to take me to the St. Regis downtown. If I was going to be single and wealthy, I might as well start tonight. My phone buzzed 10 minutes into the ride, then again. Then it started vibrating continuously. A seizure of notifications. Reddit notification. You/throwaway_wife_22 has deleted their comment. Reddit notification. You/throwaway_wife_22 has deleted their post. Reddit notification. You/throwaway_wife_22 has deleted their account. She had seen it. The notification for my comment must have woken her up. Then the call started. Incoming call, Elena wife. Incoming call, Elena wife. Incoming call, Elena's mom. I put the phone on Do Not Disturb, reclined the seat, and watched the city lights blur past. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel the crushing weight of needing to prove myself. I had nothing left to prove. I spent the next morning in a robe, drinking coffee that cost $12, answering emails from my real lawyer. By 11 a.m., I had a real divorce petition drafted and a restraining order ready to be filed if she escalated. She escalated. At 11:30 a.m., there was a commotion in the lobby. I was in the hotel restaurant, picking at a croissant, when I saw her. She must have tracked my phone's location. We shared a family plan. I made a mental note to cancel that immediately. She looked frantic. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She was wearing sweatpants, and her eyes were red-rimmed. She spotted me in the back booth and practically sprinted over, dodging a waiter. Mark. Heads turned. The professional in me sighed. I didn't stand up. I didn't offer her a seat. I just took a sip of coffee and looked at her over the rim of the cup. You can't just leave, she hissed, slamming her hands on the table. You can't just drop a bomb like that in the family chat and disappear to a hotel. My dad is having chest pains, Mark. Do you have any idea what you've done? I set the cup down. I think I was pretty clear. I returned you. Stop saying that. She lowered her voice, sliding into the booth opposite me, uninvited. Her eyes were darting around, checking if people were watching. You're acting like a child. That post, it wasn't real. It seemed pretty specific. I said calmly. 5.2 million. The pacing at 3 a.m. The VP named Jason. She flinched at the name. It was creative writing. People do it all the time for karma. I was venting frustration because you were so distant lately. I exaggerated things to make the story more interesting. I never cheated on you. Jason is just a boss. Elena, I interrupted, my voice bored. Stop. I love you, Mark. I stood by you when you had nothing. I paid the rent when you were broke. Doesn't that count for anything? I sacrificed my 20s for your dream. I laughed. It was the same dry laugh from the night before. You didn't sacrifice anything, I said. You invested. And it was a bad investment because you sold your shares too early. You treated me like an embarrassing roommate you couldn't wait to evict. You hid me from your friends. You mocked me to your father. You didn't pay the rent because you believed in me. You paid it because you needed a warm body to split the bills with until Jason noticed you. That is not true, she cried, tears welling up on command. I love you. We just made it, Mark. We have 5 million. We can start over. We can go to therapy. You can't throw away a marriage over a Reddit post. I leaned forward. The apathy was gone, replaced by a cold, hard edge. I'm not throwing it away over a Reddit post. The post was just the receipt for the transaction I already knew was happening. You called me a loser for 3 years, Elena. You looked at me with disgust. I saw it. I felt it. I pulled my phone out and opened the screenshot of her comment about the prenup. I slid it across the table. Read that part again, I said. She looked down. Her face paled. I forced him to sign a prenup. I didn't want to be liable for his startup debt. I thought 100% of nothing would always be nothing. You built your own cage, I said softly. You wanted to protect your credit score from my failure. Congratulations, you succeeded. My failure can't touch you, but neither can my success. She stared at the phone. The tears stopped. Her face hardened, the mask slipping back into the cruel scowl I knew so well. You think you're so smart, she spat. You think you can just cut me out? I'll get a lawyer. I'll sue you for emotional distress. I'll tell everyone you were abusive. Go ahead, I said, signaling the waiter for the check. The screenshots are already with your parents. They know who the abuser is. And as for the lawyer, good luck finding one who can crack a prenup you drafted to protect yourself. My lawyer said it's the most ironclad document he's ever seen. He actually complimented you on it. I stood up, dropping a $50 bill on the table. You're pathetic, she hissed. You're still a loser, Mark. Money doesn't change that. You're going to be alone. Maybe, I said, looking down at her. But I'd rather be alone in a 5-star hotel than married to someone who checks the exit door every time I enter the room. I walked away. I heard her calling my name, her voice rising in pitch, turning into a scene that the hotel security would handle in about 30 seconds. I didn't look back. I had a meeting with a real estate agent in an hour. The divorce proceedings were surprisingly fast. When you have a prenup that specifies what's yours is yours, what's mine is mine, there isn't much to debate. My lawyer, a shark named Harrison, told me she tried to hire 3 different firms. All of them dropped her once they saw the document and the screenshots. She was getting desperate. I had blocked her number, her email, and her socials. I had moved into a new condo in a building with a doorman who looked like he could bench press a Buick. I was impenetrable. So she went for the soft underbelly, parents. 2 weeks after the hotel confrontation, I took my parents out to dinner to celebrate. We were at a steakhouse, white tablecloths, dim lighting, the kind of place my dad used to say was for senators and mobsters. We were halfway through appetizers when the air in the room seemed to shift. I saw my mother's eyes widen, looking over my shoulder. Oh, for Christ's sake, my dad muttered, putting down his fork. I didn't turn around. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Mark, a breathless voice said. Please, we need to talk. It was Elena. She looked diminished. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a frantic, twitchy energy. She was wearing a dress I recognized, one she used to wear when she wanted to impress my parents, but it looked wrinkled. Elena, I said, not looking at her, cutting into my calamari. You're trespassing and you're interrupting my mother's story. Mom, Dad, she pleaded, ignoring me and looking at my parents. Please tell him to stop this insanity. I made a mistake. A stupid online mistake. But we're family. I've been your daughter-in-law for 3 years. You can't just let him throw me away like garbage. My mother, a woman who usually apologizes to telemarketers for hanging up, slowly wiped her mouth with her napkin. She picked up her wine glass, took a sip, and set it down with a deliberate clink. Elena, my mother said, her voice ice cold. I read what you wrote. I read that you called my son a useless burden. I read that you were waiting for him to fail, so you could leave him for a VP. That was just venting. Elena cried, her voice rising. People were staring now. I was stressed.
I helped him build that app.
I supported him. You didn't build a damn thing, my father grunted. You complained. Every time we visited. You rolled your eyes when he spoke. You made him feel small. We saw it. We just kept our mouths shut because we thought he loved you. I do love him, she sobbed, reaching for my arm again. I pulled away sharply. Where's Jason? I asked. The question caught her off guard. She froze. What? Jason. The VP. The real man. Why aren't you with him? If I'm such a loser, surely he's waiting to sweep you off your feet. Her face crumbled. The fight went out of her instantly. He didn't want a relationship, she whispered, looking at the floor. He just wanted fun. I nodded. It was exactly what I expected. So, you tried to swing to the next branch, but you missed and now you're falling, and you want me to be the safety net. I stood up. I was taller than her, and for the first time I felt it. I'm not a net, Elena. I'm the ground. And you just hit it. I signaled the manager, who was already hovering nearby. Please escort this woman out. She's harassing my family. As the security guard gently took her arm, she looked back at me one last time. There was no anger left, just a terrifying realization that she had gambled everything and lost. Mark, she whimpered. Please. I turned my back to her and sat down. So, Mom, I said, my voice steady, tell me more about the garden. 18 months later, I was in New York for a fintech summit. Life had accelerated in ways I couldn't have predicted. I had started a venture capital firm, reinvesting the buyout money into other dreamers who needed a break. I traveled. I ate well. I slept through the night. I was sitting in the lounge of the Mandarin Oriental, waiting for Sarah. Sarah was an architect I'd met 6 months ago. She was fierce, brilliant, and didn't know how much money I had until our 5th date. When I told her, she had shrugged and said, That's nice. Can you pass the salt? I was checking my emails when a shadow fell over the table. I looked up. It took me a second to recognize her. She looked older. The sharp, polished edge she used to cultivate was gone, replaced by something dull and worn. She was wearing a server's uniform, black slacks, white shirt, and holding a tray of drinks. Mark. Elena stood there, staring at me. She looked tired. There were fine lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Hello, Elena, I said. My pulse didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I felt nothing. It was like running into a high school classmate you barely knew. I saw your name on the guest list, she stammered. I work here now, event staff. Okay, I said. She lingered, shifting her weight. I heard you're doing well. I saw the article in Forbes. I'm staying with my sister in Queens, she said, the words tumbling out. It's been hard, the legal fees, and nobody wanted to hire me after that, she was fishing. She was casting a line into a pond that had dried up 1.5 years ago. She wanted me to ask if she was okay. She wanted me to offer help. She wanted to know that she still existed in my world. That sounds difficult, I said politely, the same tone I would use with a stranger complaining about the weather. Mark, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Do you ever think about us? About what we had? I looked at her, really looked at her. I thought about the 3 years of insults. I thought about the Reddit post. I thought about the silence in the apartment while I coded, and she scrolled Instagram, wishing she was with someone else. No, I said. Her face fell. Never, Elena, I said gently. I don't think about you at all. Just then, Sarah walked up. She looked radiant in a green dress, smiling as she saw me. She didn't notice the server standing awkwardly by the table. Ready to go? Sarah asked, taking my hand. Ready, I said, standing up. I looked at Elena one last time. Excuse me, I said, gesturing for her to step aside, so I could leave the booth. We have a reservation. I walked past her without brushing against her. I didn't look back to see if she was crying. I didn't care if she was. She was just a ghost haunting a house I had moved out of a long time ago. I walked out into the city lights, holding Sarah's hand. And for the first time in my life, the future was the only thing I could see.
Wow.
So, what do you even say to a story like that? I'm genuinely curious. If you had been in my shoes, at what point would you have walked away? Or would you have tried to make it work, knowing what was at stake? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.